Hi, everyone, and welcome to the podcast channel where we discuss career in tech and job search experience for immigrants in the US. I'm your host, Anna Naumova, an immigrant myself and a former product manager at Apple. I'm thrilled to be here sharing my knowledge and insights with all of you. The role of product manager has become very desirable within the tech industry over the past decade. In this episode, two experienced product managers came together to share in-depth perspective on this dynamic position. We will discuss the identity of a product manager, the high expectation company have for this role, and the steps you can take to kickstart and excel in your own product management career. Don't miss out on this valuable insight. Stay tuned. But before we get started, I'd like to ask you, please subscribe to my channel. Each week, I release new videos covering various topics about product management, job search, and immigration to the US. If you need assistance with your job search, create a perfect ATS-friendly resume or advanced LinkedIn profile, please visit annanaumova.com to schedule a call with me. You can find the link to my website in the video description below. All right, my guest today is Ilya Bezdelev, a former product manager at both Google and Amazon. And not only has he excelled in his realm of product management, but he is also a podcast creator himself and the founder of Metacast, a platform for podcast listeners and podcasters. Hey, Ilya, and thank you for joining me today. How are you doing?
Hey, good morning. Doing good. Just woke up half an hour ago, but doing good.
Perfect.
Let's roll.
Yeah, it's 9 a.m. In Texas and 10 a.m. in Florida, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
I just came back from the West Coast, so I'm sleeping late. Yeah.
You're still in that Pacific time zone, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so two product managers together from sunny American states, Florida and Texas, with like expected heat about like 100 Fahrenheit, 40 degrees. Is that correct temperature?
We have a heat warning going on for the last couple of weeks. It is extremely hot. I don't venture outside the house at all.
I agree. And August is usually the hottest month in a year in the United States overall. Perfect. Can you please tell me about yourself, about your background and experience?
Sure. So I'm currently a co-founder of Metacast, which is a company that me and my former Amazon colleague founded a couple of months ago. We are building a podcast listening app and a platform for podcasters. It's going to be very exciting. We haven't launched yet. We are about to ship a closed beta, so I can't say more details just yet. But stay tuned. I guess sign up for our newsletter at metacastpodcast.com and to find out when we launch. Prior to that, I was a senior PM with the Google Maps platform. So basically, we were building the API for creators of apps that use geospatial capabilities. And before that, I was a principal PM at Amazon Web Services, working primarily on chatbots and on analytics platforms. Yeah, and have lots of other experience prior to that too.
That's super exciting experience. I can say I think like working at Google Maps is very it's the high responsibility because like Google Maps is kind of core of the product of Google. So I bet you're very skilled and very professional, and you're going to share with us your knowledge today.
Yeah, the interesting thing about that actually role is that I wasn't working on the Google Maps itself. I was working on the Google Maps API, which gets, I don't do we swear here. They get a lot of usage from folks like Uber and Airbnb and others on their apps. So in some way, it's actually even more responsibility than the Google Maps consumer product because you're accountable to the companies,
partners,
not just the free users that use the consumer app.
I bet. I bet. Okay, gotcha. So, and about Metacast, you shared that you haven't launched your product yet, but our listeners can still watch your podcast and listen to your podcast. So you release episodes on YouTube and all podcast platform. Yeah, that's correct.
Yes, yeah. And if you want to check it out, check out our episode 28, where we had Jason Fried himself from 37 Signals as a guest on our show. We talked a lot about entrepreneurship, and I think product managers can get a lot of insight from that as well, because we were talking quite a bit about building products.
Okay, can you remind the name of the episode again?
So it's Metacast episode 28 with
20.
Jason Fried as the guest.
Okay. Okay, I will leave the link to this episode to the description of this video. Okay, let's switch to our topic. We're gonna discuss today how to become a product manager, and I think we should start with some theoretical explanation. Who is a product manager, and what are their core objectives and responsibilities?
Cool. So I have to caveat that my view is biased entirely on working at big tech, and I started from kind of a senior role right away. And actually, Amazon doesn't even hire for junior PMs. So at Amazon, the entry level is a senior PM. And at Google, I also started as a senior PM. And I never really worked with like junior PMs. So yeah, I only worked with like people who are either senior or level before that. So we all had tons of responsibilities right away, right after joining. The requirements and the job responsibilities might vary depending on the company. So I know Facebook is kind of very similar to what Google does. So yeah, that's where kind of my experience comes from. So PMs, they are often called CEOs of the product, which when I first read this, I'm like, really? Like you're an employee, how can you be a CEO?
What do you
of
think about it? Yeah.
So as I worked on multiple products at those companies, what I realized is that PMs get disproportionate responsibility in those companies. Typically at the senior level, you would start to own either the entire product or a very, very large chunk of the product. And as a PM, you basically decide what the team is going to build, for whom, and why. But not necessarily in this order. Actually, you start with the why, then you start. No, I guess you start with the who, then you go into the why, and then you get into the what. So you decide what gets built, and then the engineering team and the design teams they decide how it's gonna look like, how it's gonna be architected, and then go and build it. But as a PM, you're a crucial part in that early stage. Not just early stage, but early stage is the most important part of the product lifecycle, where you decide what gets built. And then the interesting thing about product management is that you don't have those engineering and design teams reporting to you. You actually have to influence them to support your idea. And so you do a lot of that kind of ideation and selling to internal stakeholders and presentation to all the upper management, kind of figuring out if what you want to build is even possible, what is the economics. You do a lot of kind of business stuff, like pricing, for example, is one of the most difficult things I think I've ever worked with as a PM, because there is just so much uncertainty in pricing. You think about costs in some cases, like not at Google, but at Amazon, I definitely did. You work with legal, you work all the way with your management chain up until I guess the company requires it. And then you also have to sell it to engineering leadership, because even if they are told to build something, it doesn't mean they will be happy to build it. So you are, in addition to being this kind of glue between all of those different teams and stakeholders, you're also a cheerleader for everybody, because especially in the early stages, you are the person who believes in the product the most, and you want to inspire that belief, that faith in the product in everybody who is doing it. You want to go to the kind of lowest level engineer who is working on some logging thing for the app and ask them what they're working on. And they should be able to tell you that they are building this grand thing. So basically, like you should, you're the person who repeats the vision until everybody is sick and tired of it. But that's part of the job. You're the cheerleader for the team, and also you're the external representative for the team. You sell the team to the stakeholders. You make sure that everybody is visible, all of that, and you're also the interface with customer-facing teams. So if you work on a B2B product, like in my cases, they were APIs. You work with the sales teams. You work with marketing. In case if you work on consumer products, you would be also working directly with customers in some cases, like doing. In smaller team, you might be the person doing the customer development and customer research. In larger teams, you might have a user research team, but you work with them so that they know what to talk about with the users, but you also join those research calls and talk to the users themselves. So PMs are these generalists that are all over the place. Like basically, if you remove a PM from a team, from a well-established team, the whole thing will just crumble. Because, I guess a well-established team can live without a PM for a few months because a good PM would have established a roadmap for a few months ahead, right? But if you take a team that's in its very early stages, without the PM, it will just crumble because somebody needs to be the glue.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. And it's actually confirmed my feeling that explaining who PM is very complicated, because it took you like around 5 minutes to explain me who is a PM, because it's actually like really
thank you for keeping me on time.
Yeah, and a wide and broad role with a lot of different responsibilities, and it's hard to explain it in like one sentence. It's really hard. Yes, you mentioned like CEO of the product, but this is not true, because you don't have authority as a CEO. You cannot fire people because they work like not as expected. So that's why CEO is a product, but not CEO actually, blah, blah, blah. So it's really hard to explain every time. Like I try to explain who the product manager is. It costs me a lot of like thoughts about it, like, oh, this is important, and this is important. Yeah. Yeah, but I
would say you can compare to a PM to a CEO of a startup that only has founders in the startup. So like right now, my startup is just 2 people, so it's me and my co-founder. But let's say if you have 5 co-founders and one of them is a CEO, just because this person is more business oriented, maybe they have more kind of product skills, more product vision, they can't fire other co-founders. They don't have that authority. Even if they have on paper, these people still own kind of the ownership. You can't just fire people. You have to influence your sort of founder friends to do the work. That's what is similar to the CEO position in PM. But if you take like a startup with 10 people where you have employees, then it's very different, because then you don't have the authority.
Absolutely. And I like your analogy with glue. I think like glue is really like very concise description of the product manager. So product manager is the glue between your engineers, designers, other stakeholders, businesses, users, like whatever like is involved in your products. As a product manager, you need to like stick everything like together in one machine and move it forward without authority, and being at the same time a cheerleader. Yeah, that's super, like make this position very interesting, and on one hand, and on the other hand, it's like pretty complicated and challenging.
And I think that's why those big companies, I can't say much about Google, but like Amazon, they don't hire for junior PM roles, because they just need the person to take that level of responsibility right away. And I don't think I've seen many PMs younger than 30 at Amazon.
And I think, for PM, you need to experience a lot of failures and learn from these failures. And if you're a junior PM, and we will talk about juniors PM a little bit later, how to get this experience, how to make failures, how to, I don't know, launch something and learn from that. So, but yeah, I agree. Like, if you just read a book, you're not a PM. You need to do something. You need to fail 1 time, 2 times, like 10 times, I don't know, 100 times, like learn from that. You understand, okay, that's not like ideal as in a book. The world is different. The world is more complicated that is described in a book. So, so can you please provide me some insights into a typical day of a product manager?
It will very much depend on the product lifecycle stage. So in the early stage, it's a lot of, you write a lot. You write a lot of like the vision doc. In very early stages, you might even be writing like a mission statement for the team and for the product. You write, in different companies do it differently. At Google, you would write a PRD, product requirements document, which documents the why, the who, and the what, and then goes into a lot more detail about like what are the specific features that you want to build for those users and what kind of needs they serve. You also do the financial analysis, all of that. Amazon uses a format called PRFAQ, press release and frequently asked questions, where you write a one-pager in a specific format of a press release that as if this product was already released to the market. And a good press release is actually, a good PRFAQ is publishable with almost no changes, like a year later when the product is built, which never happens, but like that's the idea, that's the spirit of it. So then basically you describe, like if you announce it, what are you going to write about? Then I also like the approach, I did it once at Google, is you first write a blog post of how you announce the product. And then you work backwards from there. So in the early stages, it's a lot of that writing and rewriting and sharing with other people and getting feedback and talking to engineering, talking to design, because a lot of the things, especially in big companies, will be defined by what legacy infrastructure you have. What are the existing constraints that you have to build around or within. So some crazy ideas just cannot happen. Even if a startup can do them, but like a big company cannot because it will be too expensive or like even impossible in some cases without like rebuilding the whole thing. So there's a lot of that stakeholder communication going on early on. So you want to get buy-in, at least kind of my approach, I want to get the buy-in from people kind of at my level, kind of my engineering manager, kind of the principal engineer, kind of the designer who will be working on this, so that everybody is aligned. So also in the early stages, you would do a lot of UX research so that you are informed. All of your documents are informed by actual customer inputs. That's data and not just your opinions, because that's very important. Nobody likes, opinions are very easy to challenge and poke holes in. Data is, well, you can also poke holes in data, but it's much harder. Then you also do a lot of analysis. So what I'm saying is you can't, no day of a product manager is the same. That's actually a cool thing about the profession, right? About the job. So one day you're writing a lot, the other day you're just like diving into data, like writing SQL queries. Next day, you are brainstorming with the designer for the full day. And then like the day after you talk to engineers quite a bit, but usually it all happens on the same day. You have these back-to-back meetings, but it's important actually for PMs to carve out time where they can do deep work, like deep thinking, deep writing, all of that. Also, early stages, you do a lot of presentations to management when you're ready. Like you don't show like rough ideas, but even rough ideas, you want to socialize them. Let's say you meet for a one-on-one with your director, you just mention it, right? And then at some point you have a formal review. And at Google, at least in my experience, it would be just at the director VP level max. Like 1 or 2 layers above you. At Amazon, I had to go all the way to Andy Jassy, and it was like 4 or 5, maybe 6 reviews before we got green lighted to start working on the product. So it depends. So this is the early stage, right? At later stages, when you've defined what you're working on, you just work a lot with like designer. You sit with them, iterate on the mocks. I mean, they do the mocks, but you like give them feedback, correct them, give them more data. You work a lot with engineering on the architecture, so they will, or system design as it's called. So they will design it, and you actually need to understand what they are saying, or be able to make them explain in the ways that you understand, which is where a lot of soft skills also come in. So that you know that what they are proposing is not going to affect your scaling down the line. So there's a lot of that going on. And then when they actually start building the product, you are with engineers. It depends on the company very much, but you would be at least in their weekly like meetings where things are discussed, like things that are blocking the product, or they have questions. There's a lot of that. The engineer would come to you and they would be like, "How about this? It's not in the PRD." And you would be like, "Yes, we didn't think about this." And it could be like a button that you need to add, or some kind of functionality that affects something else. And as a PM, well, if you're a good PM, actually, you've built that relationship with engineers, so they come to you and not just like implement something that they think is right. There is a thin line there. Like, you want to give them some authority, but at the same time, some things will affect the future of the product, and you don't want an engineer to slap a button where a button shouldn't be. So as a PM, you sort of control that the thing stays within the boundaries, and you also answer a lot of those tactical questions. But you also work with like marketing, legal, basically all of that launch activities that have to be done. PMs are in the depth of it because the PM is a domain expert. So the PM needs to explain to marketing, to legal, what the product is doing, what are the implications, and they come up with artifacts for you. But you have to like work with them quite a bit. Yeah, when the thing launches, you talk to customers, you understand where it works, where it doesn't, what marketing should be different, what new features you should build. You build a roadmap. I guess all of that I forgot to mention. Like in the early stages, you create a roadmap, and then you refine that roadmap on a regular basis because things keep changing, world evolves, dates keep slipping. That's just the typical reality of, I guess, of the PM. Just things keeps changing all the time, and you have to keep all of that glued together at all times. And as you go through different stages, also the skill set kind of varies. So you start from like thinking bigger and selling to stakeholders, and you go into like going in depth with engineering, and then in the final stage, you are more like execution driven, like do data analysis,
A/B testing,
roadmap, A/B testing, yeah, all of that. Actually, I've never done A/B testing, I think, because I always work with enterprise products.
Oh, I did a lot.
You can do A/B testing in enterprise products.
There was small volume of data, yeah, not enough data.
No, it's not just about the data; it's about the predictability, because enterprise expects the thing to perform exactly the same every time. So instead of A/B testing, you do like closed betas where they can test the thing, and you can change it while they are in closed beta under NDA. But once it's in production, like APIs don't change for like decades. Like yeah, backward. Anyway, it's another topic, but it's a very interesting topic. That's why you cannot do A/B tests, because people build businesses on top of your products. You can't just break them.
Yeah, that means that there is no typical day for PM. It depends on the product life cycle, where the product is right now at the early stage, like ideation, where you need to conduct a lot of research, or it's in like in post-launch stage, where you need to talk to your customers or users, understand their behavioral, digging into data, running A/B tests if it's possible, like etc. So, and also depends on the stage, or like the size of the product. If it's a early stage startup, you have another scope of responsibilities and tasks. If it's Amazon or Google, you have another scope of task. Yeah, so this means that it's like super vary from the size of the company, life cycle of the product, like, and maybe domain as well, like is it enterprise or consumer products as well? It might be different. So yeah, interesting. So let's so since we discussed that this role is super complicated, I bet for companies to to select the right product managers is also very complicated. So let's talk about the hiring process. Like, why do companies hire product managers, and what strategic goal do they aim to achieve by hiring PMs? Why company need like product managers?
Yeah, because they need glue. Otherwise, things fall apart.
But maybe like CEO can do that, like, or I don't know.
I mean, in a small company, right? Like we are right now. I'm the product manager for our company of 2 people.
Jeff Bezos, no.
but I think he was early on.
I mean, like now, yeah.
I mean, right now he isn't even the CEO anymore. So
yeah,
he's just the owner, a co-owner of the company. So I cannot comment on like startups larger than ours, but in big companies where I worked, they've already established the function of product management. They know the value, and usually when they hire, they backfill for somebody who's moved on, or when the team grows, they feel the pain. Because PMs are typically the most overloaded resource in the product team. Like designers and engineers, there could be many of them, but PMs are usually stretched very, very thin, just because you have to have this. And again, this is what big companies do, because you have to have this holistic view of the product. You can't have, say, 3 or 4 people and like just slice the responsibilities between them like you can do with engineers. Somebody has to take the full view of the product, and I think that's why they hire primarily at senior levels. And yeah, so I think they hire when they feel the pain. It's like things don't get done, things fall apart, or somebody left, so they start hiring. So those big companies, they have their processes. They know when they need to hire. So I guess it's a very easy answer.
Yeah, companies need product managers, and as you mentioned, like is an early stage like yours, like Metacast, you play this role of product manager. But when the company would be growing, you probably hire a product manager for your
may
company.
or may not, because it very much depends, right? The typical ratio of a PM to engineering team is 1 to 10.
1 to 10.
So you have 1 product manager for 10 engineers. Sometimes you have less, sometimes you have a bit more. It depends on the complexity of the product and complexity of the infrastructure that goes in there. For startups, I think it's wasteful to have a product manager at a scale where like a CEO just can no longer scale him or herself, right? And I think it's different for venture-backed startups, because CEOs spend a lot of time fundraising and all the board meetings and all that stuff, because they are preoccupied with money, right? With bootstrap startups, we can take things a bit slower at our own pace. So like I'm not distracted by investors. I 100% work on a product, and anything like marketing, basically everything I do directly adds value to the company. And so this is where like I don't know when we would hire a PM. It's just too early to think about hiring a product manager. We can't afford one
yet. I bet you will. So, and based on my experience, like working with startups, the first product manager for the startup is usually hired to cover project management responsibilities. Like, for example, if for PM, or for founder wants to focus more on like financial investment, like raising money, some high level stuff, and maybe high level like overview of the product, like strategic planning, etc. So they need someone who would talk to developers, who would create a PRD documents, like providing tasks, like managing backlog, all that stuff, like more project management role. So that's what I've seen in my experience, like by hiring first product manager for startup. It's not like a typical product manager who will come to the product and would set up a vision of the product. So because founder usually set a vision at this stage.
Yeah, that's what I actually read about. it is very challenging to be a first product manager in a small startup because the founder will still keep driving the vision. So you are left, in many cases, based on what I read, at a situation where you don't have the power you want to have, and maybe it's best to hire somebody who is really junior, who can be the proxy between the founder and the engineering team, and then they can grow into a higher role. But let's say if you hire a CPO for a company that has 20 people, then it's likely that CPO will be way too overqualified for the role because they will be just a proxy between the founders and the
Right.
teams.
Yeah, that's super difficult task to hire first product manager. I agree, and it's going to be like a dating. You need to have like exact match with the founder because you are the right hand of your founder. You need to have really good relationship and understanding without like words. Like you just like need to be probably attachment to the founder, right? As a product manager, you can.
Yeah, and you need to be able to be led as opposed to lead. And I think many PMs, one of the traits in good PMs is that they're leaders. They want to take the charge. They want to drive the vision. They want to grow. And if you're in a position where there is always a ceiling, as in like the founder tells you what to do, and then you're responsible mostly for how, then and like giving data to the founder so the founder can make an informed decision, I think that's a fairly unfulfilling position. But I think it very much depends on the founder, right? Because if the founder is an engineer, for example, they might be more willing to give things to you as opposed to a founder who has a lot more product background.
I agree. So, okay, let's talk about qualities and traits. What qualities and traits make for a strong fit for the product management role?
Yeah. One of the most important ones, if not the most important one, is a good PM is a generalist. It is a person who knows a little bit of everything that is required in order to be able to work with stakeholders, have the vision, talk to the customers, switch between domains, because PMs usually don't stay within the same domain for a very long time. They switch between domains. You need to be able to very quickly ramp up on knowledge. You need to like be able to dive into design with the designer, and then after that meeting is over, go and dive into the architecture, and then go and present your stuff to the director. It's a very varied role, and that context switching is not for everybody, because you will switch context all the time, and you'll have to keep a lot of information in your head, those kind of mental models, especially in big companies, because there are lots of dependencies in other parts of the company that your product depends on, or somebody else's product depends on you, and you have to like work with all of that. It's very random, it's very chaotic, and it's very hard to systematize, especially that whole communication side of the thing. But also you work with different people. You work with probably like 50 people at any given time in a big company. Some more closely, with some more remotely, but still it's a very large number of people. So being able to just quickly switch between things, ingest large amounts of data, that's large amounts of information, large amounts of people, that's very important. I think the other thing is a PM needs to be analytical. You need to be able to analyze not just data. I mean, writing SQL queries is, I think, one of the skills that actually I've seen many of the senior PMs kind of shy away from, maybe because they don't have the technical background. But it's so powerful when you can get your own data yourself and in the shape you need it. Instead of just sitting down and waiting for the analytics team to have capacity for you next week. And in big companies, especially, there could be cases where you have like the data is so complex, the permissions are so complex, you just can't do it yourself. Like it will be a waste of time. So you have to rely on others. But in other cases, you should be able to just like roll up your sleeves and go right into data, understand the data, and synthesize the data into digestible insights. So like, and data also comes in qualitative format. For example, you have a UX research. You have a UXR team, they will do it all for you. But if you are at early stages or you don't have a UXR team, UX research team, you would talk to customers yourself. You hear from customers. So you get a lot of inputs from all over the place. They can be overwhelming. You need to be able to systematize them. And again, get insights, fill in the blanks, and kind of derive insights from there. This is where the analytical piece comes in. I think soft skills, like communication, essentially, it's very important. It is, just being able to talk to people, to be likable. I hate to say this, but in big companies, actually, I guess in any team that you work, if people like you, you get a lot more done. You spend a lot less energy to get something done, because people will respect you. Likability is like a proxy for respect in some way. It is still possible to be likable but not respected. But likability is, I think, should not be underestimated. Part of the kind of communication puzzle that I've personally, I guess, communication struggle I've personally experienced over time is I used to be a lot more shy when I first started. Like going on stage between before 10 people would terrify me. Like speaking up in a room full of people would terrify me. But I was always good at writing. So, and I kind of kept improving that skill. So writing could be a substitute for verbal communication. And if you write well, if people can read what you wrote, and actually you don't need to present, you just have a discussion, that's a lot easier than being on stage, like talking to all of those, execs and all. And this is where the company culture actually is very important. Like if you go to Amazon, you'll be expected to write, like PowerPoints are not allowed at Amazon. Like you write the doc, everybody reads the doc, and then there is a discussion. And discussion is much easier than presenting something, from slides. Google is the opposite. Google, you write a doc, people do read the doc, they comment on the doc. It's mostly like at your level and level below, like engineers, they will all read the doc. Sometimes you don't even have a discussion. But execs, you have to go and present. And when people listen, they don't necessarily hear what you're saying or don't understand it the way you intend them to understand. So it's complex. But the kind of the point that I'm trying to make here is communication comes in multiple shapes and sizes, and you can work around, but it's important that the company culture matches your skill set. Yeah, I think I would just focus on these three things. It's being a generalist, communication skills, and analytical. I would also add technical skills if you work on a technical product or product that has a very complicated infrastructure, but that's dependent on. They also paid more, by the way. So, that depends on the company and the product.
Yeah, let me pause you. Let me pause you. Just want to wrap up what you just told me. Like generalist, it means that product manager should be able to switch the context and be able to know and talk about different aspects, different topics in a sense, pretty like shallow level, right? That's what I understand. You don't need to be a data analyst, but you need to be able to do some simple query analysis or being able to understand the metrics, understand some insights from
you should
the
be
data,
able to come up. You should be able to come up with metrics.
Yes, yeah,
and then basically give the tasks to a data analyst
analysts to dig deeper.
to calculate
Yeah.
those. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So talking about like marketing, you don't need to run I don't know, campaign on Google ads. So, but you need to know like on the shallow level how to do that. Why you need that? What's the outcome of these like marketing campaigns? So generalist first. Next one, analytical. And you mentioned that you don't need to be like data analyst, but you have to have like to get these insights from data. That's probably the most critical, not just like create a sophisticated queries, but to get like insights, some I don't know, outcome from these queries, like some ideas and decision. And the last one you mentioned is communication, definitely, because as you mentioned, product manager can communicate with 50 different people on a different level, absolutely with a different background. And you need to be influential enough to make things done without like spending not a lot of energy and being a cheerleader, as we discussed like at the beginning. So definitely communication is very important. So let's talk about technical skills a little bit deeper, because there are some biases around product manager. Should product manager code or not? Should product manager have a technical background, engineering background, or if it's okay for product manager not to be an engineer in the past? Like, what do you think about it?
I think people mistakenly equate coding with technical skills or engineering background with technical skills. I think where technical skills are important, you need to be able to understand system design. You need to be able to understand like how exactly the data is going to flow through the system. What are the parameters of that architecture or that application that is being designed by engineers? So you can, if the engineers tell you that this is a data pipeline and this is how it processes the data, and you should be able to know that the question you need to ask is how long each step takes. How is the data stored during those steps? Are there any privacy and legal implications? Because you're trying to connect this to the rest of the thing, right? You're not doing this just to be a pain in the ass for engineers. You're trying to understand where can it bite you back? Where can it create a scaling problem? Like for example, actually, one thing that we're working with right now, we are using a NoSQL database, which I will not go into the details, but some other companies would use a relational database for the same purpose. And for me, like my co-founder and my co-founder is an engineer, but me, like I have a background in computer science, so I understand how this works. So I'm like, why don't we use a relational database? Because it's going to be so much easier. So, and then his response to me is like, it's just gonna fall like at the scale that we need it. And we'll have to do all these other things like sharding and all that other stuff, which I understand this, but I didn't think about it. But I know which question to ask here. And once I hear the response, I know like, okay, this is the direction we are going. NoSQL means that we will not be able to afford feature, A, B, and C because they're not possible with NoSQL. And this is just an example, right? Or like when an engineer comes to you and they tell you that if you do this, it's going to be insecure because X, Y, and Z. And you should be able to understand what they mean, or at least ask the right questions to understand how big of a risk that poses. Because in some cases, actually in many cases, engineers like to overcomplicate things, especially in big companies, because your promotion depends on how complex is the system that you built, not how well it serves the customer. It's just different incentives that they have inside the company. And you should be able to challenge them and tell them, no, this should be simpler. Or like this risk we can take. So we don't need to invest extra X months to build this out. So that high level understanding of the system design, I think is very important when you work directly with technical teams. This said, however, again, my experience is very biased because I've always been working on developer products. And so my users are developers. Like this is another thing. You cannot do the role that I was doing if you don't have background in some background in being a developer, because you just don't understand what developer needs. Like they tell you something, you need to be able to understand it, right? So it's part of the domain knowledge, basically technical background. But I know for Amazon, for example, they actually had 3 different tiers of PMs in terms of technical skills or technical requirements. They had just the regular PMs who would work on, let's say a checkout flow on Amazon.com, where there's nothing technical about the product itself. You just add things to the cart and you enter the credit card details, you press checkout, and just something happens on the back end. It's not for technical users. So those PMs, they sometimes would work directly with engineering, but sometimes they would have a TPM, a technical program manager, who would run the sprints for the technical team, and they would be the person translating your business needs into engineering needs, and vice versa. So you add like another level of interaction there, because you need a proxy. But then it's so much easier to hire PMs without technical skills. Maybe that was one of the reasons why this was done, because they just hire MBAs with a consulting background, and then they're able to perform the job because they don't need to understand how all the data will flow in the system and all of that. But then the next level is PMT. It's a product manager technical. That's what kind of Amazon has had for a long time. And if you want to work in the cloud in AWS, you have to be a PMT. So that T, you have to either have a degree, then you also need to pass a technical interview. Kind of conversion from PM to PMT sometimes happens, but then those people have to almost like get the computer science degree or like study a lot to transition. And there's also another level called PMT, is to external services, which is like even more complex because you have to like present externally to developers. So you actually have to like really understand what you're talking about. So okay. I think I'll just say it depends, but I think technical skills never hurt.
True.
Yeah.
True. So yeah, so I personally don't have technical background, so I probably that's like in the first year of PM Amazon doing some consumer stuff. But I still was able to move through my career path and transition and build a successful career as a product manager. But I've never coded. I learned how to code, but I've never used that. I totally fully forgot a Python that I learned like several years ago. I just I didn't need that. So that's why I think it's definitely beneficial to have this technical background degree and ability to code, because you widen your range of job you can apply for. Like with your example with Amazon, you can apply for regular PM if you like this type of job, or you can be a product manager technical as well. So I cannot be a product manager technical without my deep technical knowledge. So my technical knowledge is pretty superficial. And I have separate episode about technical product management and how technical product manager should be with Zishan Said. And we discuss like for full hour what technical skills product managers should possess to be successful. So if you haven't watched this video, please do. And he's from engineering background, he used to be an engineer and now switching to educating product managers to be more technical. So he also covered a topic about system design. Perfect. So let's say that if someone possess the appropriate traits that we discussed previously, how can they initiate a career in product manager? How to start?
Yeah. So I think like we discussed previously, you don't train to be a product manager at school or college. My personal conviction is that product management is a mindset as opposed to a skill set. Like a PM is someone who is always looking to create something. PM is a builder at heart. Somebody who really wants to make new things, who understands the problems, who deeply sees the problems that people have, empathizes with them, and wants to fix them. Like if someone with PM mindset would open an app on the phone and like, why did it do this way? And they would start thinking about how it could be done differently, right? So I mean, I've always been like that. That's why I was attracted to engineering, because I wanted to create things. So, but then at some point, that transition to formal product management might take place, and I think all the PMs that I worked with, none of them were PMs right off, you know, in the beginning of their career. Many of them come from engineering background because they were engineers and they were taking more and more kind of influence towards what needs to be built, and then they transition within their company into a PM role. Sometimes you have an opportunity to do like a PM rotation where, let's say, you do like 6 months of PM role or any job role actually in those companies, and then they decide if you and the company decides if they want to keep you in this role, or if you want to stay in this role, or you go back to your other role. I think generally it's much easier to transition to a PM role within the company you work in, because it's just very difficult to sell yourself if you don't have the background in product management, a formal background. So the other path is MBA programs. I think a very large number of people, again, because I have an MBA from Wharton, many of my classmates went through the MBA hiring pipeline, and then that's how they ended up mostly at Amazon, because Amazon hires a lot of PMs from MBA. Like, it used to hire over 100 PMs per year from MBA programs. Now I think it's a bit less. So, and then you get people from all sorts of backgrounds, many of them from consulting or investment banking, go into those non-technical PM roles, and then growing from there, because they have all the requisite skills. They have the analytics, they have the communication. What they may not have is that builder experience. They may have the builder spirit, but not the builder experience. And maybe I have to caveat here that the builder spirit, I think, is very important for early stage products, which is where, like starting something. That's where I personally always gravitate towards. But a lot of PMs do optimization. Like, if you come to work on Google search today, you're not going to be creating anything new. You're going to be tweaking small things that drive billions of dollars in revenue, like doing A/B tests and all of that. So for that, actually, you don't have to be a builder. You can be an optimizer, and that's fine too. It's just like not who I am, so it's hard for me to comment on that kind of role type. But I think transition to PM is probably one of the harder transitions just in general in tech, because of that generalist mindset that all around like shallow skill set you have to possess, I guess, in everything. Not everybody just naturally gravitates toward that, but those people who do, I think they eventually just naturally start to play a role of it's not an important thing. Like, a product manager is not necessarily a formal job title. You can be a product manager without having the product management title. And that's what I was in my previous company before going to MBA. I worked for DHL Express. I was a program manager. Technically, like, I was running projects, but I had an opportunity to build something, and I'm like, I'm gonna do it, and I did it. And when I applied for my PM jobs in the future, I always positioned this as a PM experience, even though my title was something else. So side projects, do a lot of side projects, like build stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, let's dig a little bit deeper. You mentioned that transition within the company is one of probably the best way to be a product manager. Also, education, you mentioned MBA, and also side projects, build your own project. Yeah, and title probably is not very important if you built something, but you were like a project manager at that time. You can promote yourself like as a product manager, because you actually have done this product management work. Let's talk about transition within the company, because I think that it's the most like relevant and most popular way to become a product manager. So which adjacent roles provide a smoother path into a product manager role? Who would be the best product managers within your company? Not your company, just overall.
Yeah, more senior engineers. like mid-level to senior engineers who have been playing a team lead role, but have been mostly gravitating towards like product decisions. I've seen those. I think that's one role. The other role is, I think it's an obvious one, for project management, project or program management. So people who run, basically they do what PMs tell them. PMs and other stakeholders. They basically make sure that all of the gears are running the way they should. But some of them find it uncomfortable to be constrained by just managing the process, and they want to go, beyond that. And usually, it's not like they wait to become product managers. They contribute a lot to the product thinking, to the product roadmap, and everybody sees them as a potential product manager. And then, so when they bring this up with, let's say, their manager or their leadership, it's obvious to everyone that this person has the skills. And maybe they need to learn a bit more. Sometimes you have to take like a down level. Let's say if you were like an L7 program manager, but like you don't have the skills to be like an L7 PM because it's a very senior role, and then they can bump you down to L6. You can still keep the same salary because PMs make more than TPMs, but you can you have to be able. You have to. It's actually a very important concept, I guess, in career. Sometimes to grow up, you have to go down, which means like taking a pay cut, taking like a lower job title to move to a different role, or to move to a different company, to move to a different industry. Sometimes you have to take a step down, but then you grow from there. I think the third role that I've seen at least actually a couple of people transitioning, it's some kind of customer success role, especially in enterprise kind of developer type products. People who help customers solve their problems with your technical product, like directly. They are technical. They work with customers a lot, so they understand. They have the customer empathy. They know how to communicate. They know the product in and out as a user, and they also communicate with you a lot because they relay those issues to the team. And I think I've seen at least 2 examples at Google on my teams of people who transitioned from customer success into kind of the most junior level of PMs.
Yeah, perfect. And I can add like product designers will be a good product manager, can be a good product managers because they also know users. They also know products and how to make users' life easier and better. They probably somehow technical because they also work with technical team, and they somehow business oriented as well because they're not just like creating a design. They create and design for some purposes to satisfy business needs. So that's why I see a lot of product designers also had this transition to product manager role. And actually, QA might be a good fit for product managers, QA leaders, I can say, not just like QA, like who just doing like manual testing, but QA leaders as well. They're pretty technical. They know what user likes, but they probably should develop that business perspective, understand how to make money with the product. So that's what I see most in the transition. And marketing, I personally came from marketing. Like I have marketing background. I used to be a marketing manager, like with transition to product marketing and to product manager. Yeah, that was my career path as well.
A fun fact, at Microsoft, product managers are called program managers. And what they call product managers is what's called PMMs, product marketing managers elsewhere.
Yeah. That's fair because like from marketing, I have a lot of understanding of users. I'm really good at getting users insights, talking to users, conducting user interview, user research. I know how to sell. I know how to promote. That's like my marketing background benefits me in my product role. What I needed to learn is like a technical stuff. So that's my probably weakness as a product manager. I'm not like technical enough. Like I'm still like have a lot of room for improvement. I can start like learning Python, but as I mentioned, I learned. I just don't need it, in my current role. But still, this is like the gap I always need to fill. all my career, like I need to fill this technical gap. But yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the strategy. Let's say I am in one of those positions you mentioned. Let's say, I don't know, you can select any like senior engineering leader or like project manager. So can you outline an effective strategy for this transition?
Oh, it's a good question because I've not done it myself, right? So I can only kind of speculate here.
Yeah, let's say, okay, I'm a I don't know, project manager, and I want to be a product manager. What should I do actually? I need to have some strategy on that.
I think the first question to ask is why you want to be a product manager.
Yeah, let's say as we discussed before, is a super exciting role. I want to communicate more. I want to make impact on the business product or whatever. So I like this. I want to grow in a salary. Yeah, definitely. Because you also mentioned that product managers earn more money than project managers. So.
Right. Yeah. So I think the why question is the most important, because if the why comes to you naturally, so basically you would already be doing a lot of things that the product manager is doing. Like you would maybe do some data analysis, you would contribute some ideas to the PM, to the engineering team. So you would already have this evidence that you are fit for a PM role, or at least you have the aspirations. Because I think what I've seen a lot in the recent years is work in technology became not just for outliers, but it became mainstream. And then a lot of people want to break into tech, not because they're technical, not because they love building products, but because it's a trendy thing and because it pays more, right? There's a lot of that. But then what ends up happening is that they're paid well, they have the title, they're miserable at their job, and they can't grow, higher. That's because they weren't built for that. They don't have the right. They're not motivated to do that job. They're motivated by the wrong things. So this is why I'm saying that the why is very important, because if you know, I mean, if you have this kind of PM sort of thing in you, you'll already be doing some of that and showing that to other people that maybe you've outgrown your role, maybe you need something else. But in terms of the strategy, like there are also intentional things you could do. If you're already kind of providing a lot of inputs and doing all that, you can make your product manager your ally. Tell them that you actually want to be a product manager and build that relationship, take them out for coffee. That's where being likable comes in too, right? It's like make the product manager your buddy. Ask them, what does it take within this team, within this company, to become a PM? Where does that person see gaps in your skill set and maybe in what you do? And then strategize with them. Can maybe they delegate something to you? Because PMs are so overwhelmed most of the time, they would happily delegate something to you. Like take an additional project that can show that, can demonstrate that you're a good fit for PM. But don't just do it with one PM. You also like work with your manager, work with maybe like the manager of PMs. If you have like a product manager, you have maybe senior manager or director of product management. Talk to all of them. So, but you have to have established yourself as an excellent contributor at what you do already, because no one will want you to take an additional project if you are not good at your job today. So it's like you're a superstar performer. They want to keep you. What you want to signal outside is that you've outgrown your role. You've outgrown your role. You want to take more. Nobody wants to lose good people. They would rather lose them to a different team or to a different role than to lose them entirely for the company. And when somebody starts asking these questions and they're excellent at what they do, that's the first thing that the manager will have, is like, how do we keep this person? Not how do we keep them doing the thing that they're doing, but how do we keep them like as an asset for the company and for the team? And especially for larger teams where there are multiple PMs, there could be an opening. There could be an opportunity for a small project. There could be a standard process for like PM rotation or some kind of PM transition, like you really need to understand what it takes to get there. And one of the things that, I personally applied for promotion when I got promotion from senior to principal, and also when I was coaching my engineers, because I also managed an engineering team for a while. But the same thing can be applied to the role transitions. You take the job responsibilities document. You take the job responsibilities document and you put every single line on a spreadsheet. Like needs to run this project, like whatever, drive the roadmap, like communicate engineers, but whatever it is that the job description says, could be like 20, 30 items. Put it in a spreadsheet and rate yourself on each of those dimensions, right? It also applies to promos, by the way, to promotions. So rate yourself and be like, don't go too like fancy, just like low, medium, high, or green, yellow, red. Do something simple. Self-assess yourself. Then go to your PM. Don't show them your ratings. Ask them to rate you in each of those dimensions.
Understand this gap, yeah?
Understand that gap. There will be a lot of gap in perception right there. And then I'll go to like the manager of the PMs and see where they see the gaps. Because then you will see, because you know how like more than half of people think that they're better than average at driving, which statistically is an impossibility, right? So that's how people think about themselves at their jobs, right? They think that they're better than they are. And they sometimes don't see at all some of the glaring gaps that everybody else sees. And this is where this honest assessment helps you. But if you just go doing your project management job, they will never tell you what you need to grow to a product manager. You have to drive it yourself. So there's a bit of that self-starter, self-driven attitude that actually you have to possess as a PM anyway. And then you can demonstrate this while doing that as well. Does it help?
Yeah, I agree. Just want to like wrap up what you mentioned because it's very important. I think for any transition, first, I really like your idea to be a body of your product manager, be your product manager ally. So, and try to contribute to their work, try to help them because PM is always busy. Yeah, and I bet. So like, for example, for customer success role, I'm a product manager. I work with customer success team. And instead of just throwing out all this customer feedback on me, just do your work, like prioritize your customer feedback and come to me with, I don't know, top 3 needs, ideas, like problems, customer problems, and explain me why you decided that these 3 problems is the most important and I should focus my work on. So that would be a great help for me. And that would show this specific customer success representative to have a potential PM in the future because they did a lot of work. They prioritize customer feedback. They have reasoning of them why they prioritize that way. So that I think anyone who want to be a product manager should do, like regardless of their job title. And I like the idea about assessment because I might assess myself as a perfect, I don't know, like technical engineer, but I'm not. I would never do that. So anyway, fake it until you make it. Okay, let's switch to education. That's a super common question that people ask me. Which courses should I take or which education should I take to be a product manager?
It's a very good question because I have not taken any courses. Even previously, you called MBA education. MBA is not education. MBA is a networking opportunity as opposed to education. It's very expensive. Like you buy your spot in the club. That's what a top MBA does. It's not really education. So as far as like product management courses, I know there are a few of them. I've never checked any of them out because they all seem to be targeted at the beginners. And so I just prefer reading like blogs and listening to podcasts. Even now, I don't even do that. But like when I was earlier on when I first got my formal PM role, I was listening to a lot of podcasts on product management. Like This is Product Management is a good podcast. They have like hundreds of episodes. But you have to be able to synthesize the insights that they say there in like conversational form. I think what people want is like, give me a playbook, a step-by-step thing I can follow to become a product manager. Well, guess what? You can do this for like data analyst role. You can do this for project management role to some extent. You can do this to engineering to some extent. But PM, it's just so varied across companies and across industries. It's like you just have to like, yeah, no, you have to be a generalist with a bit of skills here and there. And I personally don't know how you get there without like having that mindset in the first place.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you because when people ask me this question, I say like nothing. So like no course can help you to become a product manager. So it's not like a PMP for projects. Like you pass this course and you put it in your resume and enhance your resume. You cannot put like any of these course in the market like to your resume and be sure that that will help you to find a job. So and about MBA, I agree. It's mostly like really like for networking because networking is very important for job search and like running business. So that's what I mean.
Actually
yeah.
add something. So I think what's very important, because like think about the role of PM. The PM role, I think, is two very important, two most crucial things you do is you make decisions and you communicate. These are the kind of at the meta level. These are the two things that you do all the time. And making decisions, like you cannot learn to make decisions because in all cases, like majority of cases, you will not have enough data. You will have to choose between two bad things, and you have to choose which one is worse. Like you will always upset somebody with your decision. Like it's just a given, right? And then there is always uncertainty. So that thing, kind of communication, you can train, but making decisions is it's something that comes with experience. And I think what helped me personally is I've always read a lot of biographies, like lots and lots and lots of biographies, case studies, like podcasts where people tell about their experience. Like I'm fascinated by those stories. Like there is this podcast called "How I Built This" by Guy Raz. There is, This Week in Startups. He has founders on this podcast. Like I just lose myself listening to those interviews, to those biographies where people tell about how they built their products, what decisions they made, especially those hard decisions. I get so immersed in those stories that I almost internalize them, that when a decision like this comes up in my career, I'll be like, oh, Apple did this, or like Airbnb did that. So I always have these things like somewhere stored in my memory and I can pull to help me make the decision. And I think this is something that I get goosebumps now when I'm talking about this, because this is something that I think is probably the only thing that can really train you for making decisions, because otherwise you have to rely on your own experience, and your own experience is always limited by time and your own experience. Anyway, sorry for interrupting you.
No, that's great. That's great. Yeah, addition, because I agree. Like no education, no specific education for product to become a product manager. You can definitely read a lot. You can just listen to podcasts, read a lot of books, pass a lot of expensive courses. It's just for your like personal, I don't know, like understanding the topic, like for theoretical stuff. But to be a good product manager, you need to have experience. You need to make things done. You need to accomplish something. You need to fail, or you can learn from someone else's experience reading their biography. So let's switch to side projects.
But I think we forgot about very important thing, by the way. But there are also technical skills that you need to possess, like technical, not like coding, but things like understanding finance, understanding accounting, understanding marketing, understanding data analytics, maybe SQL queries. So for those specific skills, you can take courses, like how to do like a financial model. You can take a course on Coursera from one of the top universities, and actually that is helpful. You can put this in your resume. You can use it in your job. So I think it's important to actually collect those. You need to separate what is the kind of soft skill and what is the hard skill. So the hard skills, you can learn them. The soft skills is where it gets more tricky. That's why I'm not a big fan of those kind of courses unless they focus, let's say, on data analysis, because then you just train that specific muscle, and then that's good. But it doesn't make you a product manager by itself.
Yeah.
Let's go on to the next thing.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, hard skills, any like SQL, Python, financial model course, I don't know, design course, whatever you like, that can contribute to your PM role and kind of fulfill you as a product manager. If you feel this gap, like technical gap, do you like go to take any technical courses just to fill this gap? Like anyway, you need to fail, you need to make things done, you need to I don't know, do something. And let's talk about side projects. Like for example, I read a lot of books, I read like the theoretical courses like about product management, but I need to add something to my resume. Like what's like how can the like founders, let's talk about founders. I've seen a lot of founders like coming from wanting to be a product managers for some reason, and how they can leverage this their experience to position themselves as a product managers, or how can I position my side projects, because I'm just the founder of my side projects in my resume and use it on the job interviews. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I think you need to understand what the company you're applying to means by product management. Like, what do they expect? Because the expectations will vary from company to company. And then you map that to the experience you had with your side project. And yeah, show that in the resume. I think one thing, so I recently was talking to somebody who worked at a smaller company, much smaller company, and he wanted to break into Google or Meta. And I think as we started talking, what we realized is that he did not have actually a very good idea of what PMs in those companies even do. And when I told him about all of that communication and alignment you have to do, so it's like this job is mostly about communication, less about actually building the product. That was a big shock for him. And I think having this expectation set right, I think is very important. Like if you build your own like small thing, like a landing page or something, and then you apply it to a role at Google, that's not going to be
relevant,
very
yeah.
impactful. It's like, this is just so basic. It's like, it doesn't count as product management experience. But for like a small company, it might, where maybe product managers are more hands-on. But if you, let's say if you had a startup that failed, maybe you worked on something for a year with a couple of other people, then you can talk about the roadmap, how you set the vision, how you help to resolve some maybe disagreements, because there will be lots of disagreements between founders. I mean, we've been doing this for 2 months. We've already had a bunch of arguments, all resolved, but that stuff trains you to be a better product manager. If you're working on something solo, I think it's much harder to sell yourself as a PM, because there is no communication involved really. Yeah, and well, if you did something successful, then that that counts, right? Because then people are interested in success stories. But then, like, why are you looking for a job as a PM? Like, so it failed in the end anyway, or like, why did you exit that? So yeah, but I think the most important thing is like you need to speak the language of the people who you're trying to work for, and see if your experience can be mapped. You need to do the work for them. Like what people expect sometimes is like, I'll send them my resume, the same resume to like 100 different jobs offerings, and they will be able to read this and analyze and understand how smart I am, and like I'm the best fit for them. No, it doesn't work this way. I mean, I think you talked on your LinkedIn that you first have to pass the automated things, then the recruiter scans your resume like diagonally. But as somebody who wasn't on like the hiring side, I mean, I've interviewed probably over 100 people at Google and Amazon. Like I usually would not look at the resume until like 2 minutes before I joined the call, and then I would just skim it. I would just look at job titles and like companies and their education, and look if they have any numbers there, and that's it. So basically, I go into interviews like almost completely unprepared, but I have my own questions that I need to ask, right? But like as far as the candidate, like I know nothing about them. And so it's all about like how can you grab attention? It's almost like social media postings in this way. Like how can you put something that immediately grabs attention, that anchors people on what you write there? But for that, you need to do the work for the person who is reading your resume. you need to say it in a way that, like, see something in the job description, like is number one, number two item, and in the requirements, phrase your achievement in a way that directly confirms that you have that.
Awesome. Awesome guidance for folks who want to apply for PM. I always talk about read job description, adjust your resume to the job description, put yourself in the interviewer place and understand what they want to see from you, what they want to hear from you, and like know that they don't know anything about you. You need to, like, from the first glance, like right in the beginning, like answering the question, tell me about yourself. You need to, like, within 1 minute explain everything that you want to hear from you, right? And like kind of hook them to be able to continue this conversation. That's like a different skill you need to learn. Interviewing skill. I agree.
Yeah, you had a very good point in one of your recent posts where, like, don't put any pictures in your resume. Don't make it longer than 1 page. Don't use any fancy fonts. Like all of that stuff, I still see people kind of neglect. They would send you a 5-page resume with like a photograph and like format it in like PowerPoint or something. Like, no, I don't even want to look at this. So yeah, you want to remove all of the obstacles from the people.
I agree. Yeah, definitely agree. So, and that's like a really good smooth transition to my next question about like finding a first product management role without prior former experience. Like, what strategies can help candidates address this challenge? So you already mentioned about resume, put some relevant information to your resume, but like anyway, if like I'm looking for a first PM role and I cannot do, like, for example, transition within the company. Let's say, I don't know, I was laid off and I don't have a company, or my company doesn't have open PM role or whatever. So if I want to still like find, or maybe I was a ex-founder and want to find a job as a product manager. So what's my strategy should be without former PM experience in my resume?
Yeah, I think as a founder or former founder, you have a much higher chance because a founder role is very similar to a PM role, just the scale is different in most cases. If you are coming from a very different role, then you need to think, can you position yourself as somebody who has done product management responsibilities without having the formal title? And you can even do things like, actually, I think I've done it because my formal role was program manager in my last job at DHL. But in my resume, I would put program/product manager. And the first thing I would write about, like the first line, would be how I built that system, which actually was minority of my time spent there, to be honest. But you have to, you can't lie, but you can position things differently, right? And sometimes actually manipulating the job title is what helps you, because people will scan the headers, which is, the job titles. So maybe putting something in brackets, like saying acting as a PM for the team or something like that, that might help at least get the attention to that line. And then, you can add more stuff there. But you have to have some evidence. If you don't have any evidence, let's say you will always a QA, like, I want to make more money, but I apply for a PM role. That's not going to work. You may get a job at like a company that is so desperate to get someone, they will get anyone. That's not going to be a great fit. And especially if you are transitioning from a different role, it's best to be in a larger team where you have somebody to learn from. Because if you come from a role where you did not have any background in what you're supposed to do, you will not just feel like an imposter, you will be an imposter for a long time. And that's very stressful. And it's like a recipe for failure. I would almost say, like, say if you were an engineer or QA, but you really want to transition to PM, but you have nothing to show for it, go to a bigger company, do what you know how to do, like QA or engineering, and then transition. Because I think like this jump from 0 to 1 is very, very hard. This jump from 0.5 to 1 is much easier than 0 to 1, if it makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what I suggest to many people. Yeah, that's like jump from 0 to 1 is definitely very complicated. And if it's possible, just find a job somewhere with your like current title, what you can do best right now. And there try to find this transition from your current role to product managers. And regarding that, like putting manipulating with job titles, I agree. And but adding at the first, like your bullet points, put product management achievement. Like for example, let's come back to our example with customer success representative. Instead of like putting like, I don't know, gathering feedback from users, instead of this line bullet point, just put like PM bullet point, I don't know, increase customer satisfaction by gathering and prioritizing feedback from customers, something like that, like more achieved. So because you accomplished something, you improved customer life, you not just gather feedback, so you did something like more important for that. So that would be also beneficial for your resume.
Yeah, also, actually, I want to add two things. So first is networking. So if you know someone, if you have a good network, somebody might help you get into maybe the most junior role in their company, just take a bet on you, especially if that person is an owner of the company, if they know you well, like a smaller company. So it's possible to go through the network, or like by knowing people. That's not for everybody. Not everybody has a network, but it is one of the possibilities. Another thing, because your podcast is mostly for immigrants, right? One thing I've seen with immigrants, especially with big tech, they would come in, they were like a director, let's say in Russia, right? And they come in and they're like, oh, I want to be like a principal designer at Google or something. And then they apply for that role. But their qualifications are like 2 or 3 levels below what the principal role at that company actually requires. Like if you were a senior somewhere else, like even like a smaller company in the US, you would probably be a junior at big tech. So also like matching yourself to the right levels, I think is very important. Just as a caveat.
Yeah, I agree. Perfect. So, okay, let's wrap out. And my last question: how to succeed as a product manager?
Build stuff that people want to pay for.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, and any other recommendation or insights related to product management that you believe is important to share today? Your last few words recommendation.
Yeah, I think I would say that PM is a very exciting role. It is a very fulfilling role, but it is also a very challenging role. Especially the more senior you grow, the more you deal with like corporate bullshit and politics and all that. And you have to be ready for this. Like if you are doing your craft, let's say you're an engineer or designer, you're a craftsman, you just focus on one thing at a time, you do great work, you take pride in it, and grow. You might not like the PM role. Like PM, what I want to say is PM is not for everyone. Like if you really have like a craftsman mindset and you enjoy craftsmanship, you might be better off growing as an individual contributor in that field as opposed to moving to a PM. I would say don't be swayed by the more money that you can make, or more prestige, because there are people who are having the job of your dreams and feel like absolutely utterly miserable, and you might be one of them. But if you feel like you're the builder, you want to build stuff, you always communicate with people, you like that soft skills aspect of the job, because like 80% of your work as a PM will be communication, then yeah, go for it and good luck.
Awesome. And I like how different we are. Yeah. Have you mentioned that? Like, have you noticed that? So you're a product manager at big company. Used to be a product. Yeah, I also used to be a product manager at the big company. But how different we are. So
Yes.
there is no really like the common traits for product managers, like the same. I mean, there are common traits, but like all product managers are different with different mindsets. And It's not all size fits all, and definitely as a product manager, you can find your company, your team, your product that you like. So it's really like a dating for me. You need to like match. You need to fit with your company, with your team, product, whatever. Like, and be like have this synergy in your relationship.
Yeah. Also, by the way, noticed that especially with talking to people from Russia, in other countries, product management might be understood very differently. And that's something to also keep in mind, because some of the PMs that I talk to, they're more like analysts. They like dig into data, design experiments, run experiments, rinse and repeat, right?
And chatting, yeah, Slack.
Yeah. So it's like it's very different roles. Some PMs, they more like project managers in some companies. So the company expectations really vary. And again, I'm very biased towards big tech because that's where I worked.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Ilya, so much for this inspiring discussion. I really enjoy it, and I hope this video will help many individuals in their career journey. And if you'd like to stay in touch with Ilya, please follow him on social media. I will find links in the description, and yeah, follow his Metacast podcast on YouTube channel as well. So if you found this video informative or insightful, please give a thumbs up and share this video. Oops, I hit my microphone. That happens with me multiple times. So if you find this video informative and insightful, please give a thumbs up and share this video with your friends. Your support can help reach more people who could be benefit from this valuable content. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to share them in the comment section below. And remember to subscribe to my channel to stay updated with future content. If you need assistance with refining your resume, optimizing your LinkedIn profile, or preparing for the job interviews, you can schedule a call with me at annanaumova.com. And once again, thank you. Thank you so much for being with us today. And I look forward to your presence in upcoming future. Thank you, Ilya.